Hey guys, heading up your well, it's Alessio, speaking to you today from the seaside town of Bournemouth in the south of England. Really beautiful and lovely place, by the way. Highly recommend it. So guys, in this video I want to tell you something quite interesting. I had my car stolen from me about a few weeks ago. I mean, it's quite embarrassing to talk about it really, because I essentially got burgled and they took the car keys and they ran off with it essentially. Anyway, long story short, my car was stolen. My lovely black Mercedes coupe, which I loved, essentially got stolen. So here's the deal, guys. I learned some important lessons from this, and I want to share with you some of the key lessons that I've learned, not just from this burglary of my car, but also generally over the last few decades. So firstly, one important thing that I think it's important for anyone who's a car owner, especially if you're buying a new car or a used car, whatever. So lesson number one is always get gap insurance on your car. Now, gap insurance is not the same thing as a regular insurance. So your regular insurance, your regular car insurance, what happens is if your car gets stolen or if your car gets damaged, what the insurance company does is just restores it to the value it is at the moment, right now. But gap insurance, essentially, as the name suggests, essentially covers the gap between the value it is now from the date you purchased it. Because if you think about it, guys, from the date you purchased the car is depreciating in value, it's falling in value. So when the insurance company pays you out, when the regular insurance pays you out, they only cover it to the value it is today, the time when it was stolen or the time when it was damaged in an accident. The fact is, guys, I think it's a good idea to get gap insurance. Now, fortunately, the good thing is I actually got gap insurance a few years ago when I purchased my car. So fortunately, the gap insurance managed to cover that gap between the value it is today to the value it was at the moment I purchased. That's a really important thing to get, by the way. Some car insurance companies call it TLP, total loss protection. But anyway, okay, let's go to lesson number two. Lesson number two is never get a brand new car. Right? This is a terrible mistake. Now, I know some of you already know this, but one devastating mistake you can make is buying a brand new car. Always get a car that's at least a few years old. I'm sure you already know the reason. As soon as you purchase a car, it starts depreciating in value. In fact, as soon as you drive a car out of the showroom, you know, when you buy a brand new car, it has already fallen in value. So one of the worst stories I heard was about a BMW i8. BMW i8 some years ago was about 100,000 pounds, $100,000 almost. And now I think it's depreciating in value. They fell so dramatically in value by half, by 50%. So, you know, it's now $50,000. So anyway, bottom line is, guys, never get a brand new car, always get a used car. At least the sweet spot, by the way, is get a car that's at least a couple of years old, 2 to 3 years old, and at least 20,000 miles of mileage on it. That's the best deal you can get on a car. You know, you might as well get a car that is not ridiculously overvalued. Now, here's another important lesson I learned. You've probably read the book by Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I highly recommend you read this book. It's a life-changing book if you haven't read it. Now, in this book, Robert Kiyosaki says a very interesting thing. He says, always buy appreciating assets, never buy depreciating assets. In fact, you should lease depreciating assets. So, in other words, guys, a better option than buying a car or buying a brand new car is to lease a car. So, that is one thing I'm doing right now. I'm not buying a car anymore. I'm just going to lease a car. The simple reason is I think Robert Kiyosaki is right about this one. Leasing a car is a much better option. Always and only put money into appreciating assets. We'll talk about this in a few minutes, but never actually buy a car. There's no point putting such a lot of money into a depreciating asset class like a car. So, for example, I'd much rather put money, I'm sure you agree with me on this, that it's better to put money into something like stocks, gold, ETFs, you know, Bitcoin if you're into cryptocurrencies. Bottom line is it's better to buy appreciating assets than to buy something that's just gonna, you know, lose value over the long term. So unless you're buying a classic car, that's different. But bottom line is, guys, that leasing a car, especially if you want to lease it through a business, is a better option than buying a car. Okay, let's go to lesson number 4. And now this is a controversial one. I'm sure I'm going to get some interesting comments on this, but I think it's a much better option to buy German cars than any other car out there. Guys, let me tell you, Germans are fantastic at many things, like classical music, philosophers, beer, probably. But I would say another thing that Germans are really good at is cars. Again, I'm biased, obviously, because I've always had German cars. So I love BMW, Mercedes, and Audi. One of the great things about German cars, as opposed to any other cars out there, is they depreciate slower So you'll find you can buy a Mercedes or a BMW, and a few years from now, they haven't lost that much value. You can't say that about a lot of cars out there. Now, my apologies to my American friends who probably love American cars and, people from somewhere else. But anyway, that's the way it is. All right, guys, let's go to lesson number 5. And this one I think is for for my younger audience between the age of 18 to 30 or to 35. I know a lot of our viewers say that, hopefully Bitcoin goes massively upwards. We can buy a Lamborghini, you buy a fast car, Lamborghini or a Porsche. Bottom line is, guys, if there's one thing I've learned is, and I think this is one thing that I'm sure you agree with me on this. If you read the book by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, again, Robert Kiyosaki makes a very important point. We have to avoid the temptation, especially when we're younger, to buy depreciating assets, whether it's a fast car or any kind of car. Ask yourself this question: why put $20, $30, or $100,000 or pounds into a car or fast car when you can put that money into a real estate, into buying rental properties, which can make you even more money down the long term? If you're going to put that kind of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars into a car, isn't it better to put that money into something go up in value, like real estate or whatever you like, gold, stocks, or Bitcoin if you want? The bottom line is that I think that the proper course of action is to only invest in appreciating assets, not depreciating assets. And you know what, guys? Once you've sold your real estate property for like millions of dollars, then you can buy a fast car, I presume. Hey guys, I just met this gentleman here in Bournemouth. He thinks I was talking to myself, but actually I was talking to you guys. Want to say hello to my friends?
But actually, you would have more sense speaking to yourself than speaking to me. I'm going to ring off now, folks.
This gentleman was saying I should see a psychiatrist because I was talking to myself, but you guys know I was talking to you. But he's right. I should see a shrink. He's right about that. Hey guys, sorry about that. I was essentially interrupted by a couple of nice folks over there who thought I was talking to myself. Obviously, they didn't realize I was talking to you. All right, guys. Thanks very much, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it.